Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. I'm your host, Joe Slepsky. And this week, I've got a special guest because he's a special friend of mine.
Aw.
He's the Cajun Queen. From down in New Orleans. He's a character. He's a bon vivant. He's one of the brightest personalities and souls, I would say, that I know, and I mean that sincerely.
I mean, that counters calling me the Cajun Queen.
I didn't mean smart. I just meant glowing. Although you are quite intelligent as well. He is likes to describe himself as the kind of guy who likes to find the place where technology and media overlaps.
Yeah,
and that comes into play. It sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I was
right?
going to say no one else has ever described themselves
it's a scintillating description. But he is one Mr. Nick Glassman. Nick, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm very happy to have you. It's about time we got this on. We known each other for a few years. You live down the street from me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the chief digital officer of Cinesight, which is an animation movie startup.
That's right.
But you previously worked in mobile games over at EA.
Mm-hmm.
You worked with Illumination, which is the Minions.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about that, Nick.
Sure. Well, let's see, I guess in the early 2000s, like 2007 or 8, I started a mobile app called iSports, which was early on into the iPhone world timeline, where it was kind of like a visualization of sports, but we sort of asked people like to make cool prop bets against each other. So like, take these two quarterbacks, who's going to throw for more yards today, or these two batters, who's going to have a better batting average. So
that's like early daily fantasy stuff.
Yeah. But all stuff.
You got out before it all got illegal,
basically. But it was me and 3 other people, and Apple featured us, and our number of users exploded, and we couldn't really support it anymore, so we sold ourselves to a gaming company, and then I ended up in games.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds more impressive than it is. Like, they stopped us from going out of business, but still, it was.
But it's the right moment, right time.
Yep.
And we met in New Orleans. That's why I brought that up first.
Yes.
You're from New Orleans.
Proudly. Where I am not known as the Cajun Queen.
No. So how I met Nick, our group of friends, I was not there for the initial meeting, but basically our group of friends were looking for a ride home from Jazz Fest, and Nick and his group of friends were literally kind enough to give a couple friends of ours a lift in a car.
That's almost
complete strangers.
Yeah.
Without going into the gory details of.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out that it was 3:00 in the morning and not coming back from Jazz Fest, and we stopped because one of my friends thought one of your friends was cute, and we wanted to figure out if he was dating that friend.
The basics. To keep basics. It's it's so long ago. Things fog. I know all these things, but they fog with the strand of time.
That's right.
And so your crew just were kind of generous and fun, and then from that we all started meeting down together in New Orleans and spending quality time down there.
Yeah. In fact, I was just texting with a bunch of your crew last night that you were on because we're trying to figure out our next trip down there.
Yeah,
and
it's such a fun city. It's so
and really, just keeps getting better and better. I mean, as horrible as Katrina was, it was tourism and people visiting New Orleans that rebuilt the whole city. And so for anyone who's never been, you just, as a visitor, you are beloved there more than any other city I could possibly imagine. You'll just be welcomed with open arms in ways that you can't imagine. Even, I think right now what we're talking about is going down there for the Bears-Saints game. Yeah. So all of you idiots cheering on the Bears will still be loved by everybody in New Orleans.
Well, you say that, and I conceptually I agree, but I will share with you this story.
Okay.
My friend and I walking down the streets of New Orleans, not that late at night, but it was later.
Which street?
I don't remember, but it was off Bourbon. We were heading back towards our hotel, and we were wearing a Bears jersey or we were there to watch Bears games. And we saw someone walking towards us with a Bears jersey on as well. And so we gave them the universal Bears fan to Bears fan, Bears, salute. That's all we said. We said Bears, and we gave him a little thumbs up.
So your universal greeting involves George Wendt from Saturday Night Live.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does.
That's gotta hurt a little bit.
I defy you to walk into any Chicago area, say Bears, and not have people return with a Bears.
Fair enough.
Anyway, we give him a very kind-hearted Bears. The man looks at both me and Matt Teese, Matt, who's the one of the musicians behind our Joe and Joe intro.
Wow.
The man looks at us and says, "Go kill yourself." He's wearing a Bears jersey.
Well, I guess as a New Orleanian, we can't take too much credit for that. I don't.
You might have been an out-of-towner.
May have.
Frankly, yeah. May have.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to have you on and to learn more about what you're doing with Cinesight. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm there running digital and awareness. So basically think of me as like I'm the guy that's going to be making games around our movies, that's going to be coming up with cool ways to reach out to people on social with social content. We have a neat contest that we're going to be announcing in a little bit where we're going to try and find the greatest filmmaker throughout the world.
Whenever you're ready to go with that, let us know. We'll launch it on the show too.
We'll do. But we've announced a few things. You know, we're working on a movie around Riverdance that I think is. I know it sounds funny, but like I think it's going to be great. And then our chief creative officer would kill me if I give it too much away. But
sure.
Any of you who've ever loved any Illumination movies, Minions, Despicable Me, that really kind of center around the beautiful world of lovable monsters, I think you'll see a lot of those similarities in what it is that we're working on.
That's very cool. I could see Riverdance being like an Irish folk tale-y kind of thing with lots of fun.
Yeah.
Munchkins
and again, I don't want to give too much away, but the overall plot line really embraces the concept that many people might not like the music, might not like the dancing, it's really I really like what the plan is with it.
I love that. I'm very excited to hear about it. So Nick, we're here to talk about Cobrathon. No, not Cobrathon. Cobrathon, man.
Yeah, I messed that up. That was last week.
Yeah, I know.
I think part of it is like when I found out that I missed Cobrathon by 1 week, I was like, God, how I am not living my life right. I mean, that is
You're not living your best life.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm sure you talked about this last week, but it is as if ISIS were to throw a telethon, right? And this is back in the world of landline phones. Like, you can figure out where these phones are. And you have what I never understood about G.I. Joe, and maybe you can explain this to me.
I'd be happy to. But real quick, by the way, I was gonna edit that part out and redo it, but now you're going on something brilliant, so this all stays in. So go. ISIS.
So did you ever, like, when you were in high school, there were basically like two meatheads that would get into fistfights all the time, and they would create scenarios by which they could, for some strange reason, get into fistfights all the time.
Sure.
So that it just seemed like Cobra never spent much time avoiding G.I. Joe or trying to avoid these conflicts. For example, televising a telethon with landline phones that one call to the government and they're like, yeah, they're hanging out in this, they're
most of their plots in the first season, as their plot is going on, Cobra Commander picks up the phone, the video phone, and calls the pit and is like, hey, guess what I'm up to? And their Joes were like, what? We got to stop it. Like, don't make that phone call, Cobra Commander.
Yeah.
And you would be so much further down the road until they caught up.
Yep.
Like, you would be winning.
I mean, it's kind of like every time you're doing something that your wife wouldn't appreciate, calling her up and sending her a video of it,
Yeah.
And I'll say most of the things I do that my wife doesn't appreciate involve volumes of food. Like, for the most part, that's what I'm doing wrong, but I would never include her in those plots. Like, we would never have our, who can eat the most beef ribs in 20 minutes kind of parties if we did
Which I've seen you do.
Yeah.
I've seen you do that
I
competition.
take pride in
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it's texting your wife when you're in the drive-thru lane saying, "I'm getting a second milkshake. Do you want one?" No.
Not to mention, and it would be as if like G.I. Joe shows up with so much weaponry and they fire it at you. I mean, maybe one of the things about the Illumination movies that I always loved is that the minions were indestructible, right? So they have these ludicrous weapons that they fire at each other accidentally, and they kind of get through it. But that wasn't the G.I. Joe Cobra universe, right? Am I wrong? There were a couple of casualties, weren't there?
Not really.
Oh,
not well. I mean, in the comics.
Well, there's your answer.
No. In the comic books, there are. In the TV show, there were a couple notable moments where they wrote people off and they showed death, but they never showed it on screen.
Yep.
The World Without End is what comes to mind, where they went to an alternate universe and there was death and there was fatality there, but they didn't show it. It wasn't your guys; it was another universe's version of your guys.
Gotcha.
So there was that element. There were people getting hurt in the movie. Famously, Duke gets straight up stabbed in the heart with a Serpentor snake, and there's no way you're not surviving that. And then at the end of the movie, they ADR in, "Hey everybody, Duke's gonna be okay." Because there was pushback when they killed Optimus Prime in the Transformers movie that came out earlier in the year.
Really?
Yeah. So the Transformers movie came out. They killed not only Optimus, they killed a bunch of Transformers, and the kids were like, what are you like? Their eyes melted. Like, they were like, why are you killing all these guys I love? So G.I. Joe, which is totally way done animation wise, at the very end they had enough pre-time before the movie released to have just someone at ADR. Hey
So
guys, Duke's alive, even though he got stabbed in the heart with a snake.
Well, let's be honest. There's not a lot of stabbing people in the hearts with snakes going on, so we don't really know the long-term medical
What would it
effects.
do? You're right. What would it do?
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of interesting, or at least I find them interesting responses to that.
But
one
in a
is
post-Temple of Doom world, we were aware of the effects of thrusting something into your chest cavity and ripping out your heart.
I mean, but again, didn't he get a few fingers into Indy and then everything was okay?
He really did. When he's on the when they're on the ladder, if you look closely, he's really digging in. Like old Indy should have some like finger-sized scars. That would be amazing.
You know what? There was a animated movie, Fist of the North Star. That's right.
Okay.
Where did you ever see that?
I'm familiar with it.
So basically, one of the bad guys has the ability to just take his finger and just stick it in your chest because he has so much strength or something like that. But he does this to the main character, and the main character for the rest of the movie has those marks.
Really?
But does survive.
Oh,
but
that's
he's got
cool.
the finger marks in him.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, but I got to be honest. I mean, just the fact that you know that there was pushback because of the Optimus Prime issue before, that's amazing. And is that where we got the metrosexual-looking truck leader after Optimus Prime, the guy who had that weird...
That's where we got him from.
Yeah.
Okay. Rodimus Prime. Renamed Rodimus Prime.
Rodimus?
Yeah.
What does Rodimus even mean?
His name was Hot Rod.
Oh.
But they wanted to tie it into Optimus. Wow. So he became Rodimus, and he was voiced in the movie. He was voiced by what's his face from Judd Nelson. Yeah, he was Judd Nelson. I don't think Judd reprised it on the cartoon. No.
Wow.
Yeah. But we're here to talk.
That's so much more interesting information than I expected to come out of making fun of one of the trucks looking like a metrosexual truck. But
there's always deep plays. You should talk to Matt Kyle. We should say Nick knows Matt Kyle, previous guest. Yeah. And Matt's a huge. Matt knows everything.
I
about
just saw
Transformers
him
ever.
at E3 in LA.
Awesome.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, fantastic. He just wrote up. He wrote up a summary of this latest Transformers movie for Film Threat, and it's a delightful takedown of just a hot piece of hot garbage.
Yeah.
So this week though, we're watching a show called The Rotten Egg, which is a really fun show because it is a personal story of revenge.
Okay.
Nick, are you a fan of the personal story of revenge genre?
Count of Monte Cristo is one of my favorite works of classic fiction.
Recently, I watched Old Boy.
Oh yeah,
are you familiar with that?
I unfortunately have seen both, but I saw the first one.
Yeah,
and,
it's crazy.
I've never looked at balloons the same way.
No, and you shouldn't. And so that's a little. This is like the G.I. Joe version of Old Boy.
I hope there's a fight scene like Old Boy where one guy just decides you 50 people are going down.
Yeah, and we're going to stay in this hallway, and we're just going to take you all out.
I don't know why you guys don't get out of the hallway.
Yeah, just leave the hallway. You'll be much healthier. Yeah, so that's what we're getting this week. Spotlight's on Leatherneck, which is he's a.
Sure?
And what's also cool is that they make him a little older on this episode. So before we do that, your history with G.I. Joe. Do you have the toys?
Well, I would say that the first fascination that might have been unhealthy that I had in my life was Star Wars figurines and figures and whatnot. And I mean, several childhood friendships ended over, I'm telling you, you took my Han Solo. This Han Solo's dirty, that kind of stuff. And I would say that if that was my first addiction, the drug I was given to wean off of that was G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe action figures, everything like that.
Yeah.
I remember that this kid I couldn't stand in 5th or 6th grade, Tommy, and I'll remember his last name, and I'm not going to say it because I think he's still out there. I can't tell you how many times he walked up to people and said,
Tommy, we're putting you on Front Street.
Yeah. How many times, hey, did you hear about the G.I. Joe, what was it? Kung Fu, what was the
Kung Fu Grip?
Kung Fu Grip. Did you hear about what was the name of the character, though?
Oh, Snake Eyes. Or Quick Kick?
Quick Kick.
Yeah.
But he always made a joke about how Quick Kick killed himself saluting. And it wasn't a funny joke in the first place, and you just heard it over and over and over again. Yeah. But anyway, that's a terrible memory. And then I am much more...
Screw you, Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy. I'm much more into movies than I am into TV shows based on my career and everything I love. So I think I even remember scene for scene the G.I. Joe movie, which I know there are 2 of them, but I think I only know one of them.
The live action?
No.
Oh, no. The animation, there's only one.
Oh, there's only one,
yeah.
So I remember that one.
Yeah.
And I have always thought that the coolest name for a bad guy ever was Nemesis Enforcer.
Yes.
And I loved that movie right up to the lunacy that at the very end, with all these cool, awesome things Nemesis Enforcer was doing, they just cut to a side shot where Sergeant Slaughter's beating him up, which made no sense. Like, just fly away. You know, you can fly. Just if it looks like you're going to lose the fight, fly away and drop a rock on him. He's a fat wrestler in a Mountie hat. But anyway, but yeah, I loved that movie. I remembered thinking that was where we got Destro, right?
No, not Destro. No, it's
who's the silver-faced guy?
Well, Cobra Commander. It's Cobra Commander gets turned into a. Oh, that's Destro. Yeah, but he was on it long before.
Oh, he was.
He was from the beginning.
There's somebody new from
that. Well, they introduced Cobra Law.
That's right.
Yeah,
sorry,
all
Cobra
of them.
Law.
So Nemesis Enforcer and the guy that was played by Burgess Meredith. His name is escaping, and the girl, the three of them. And they lived up in Cobra Law, and then on the Joe side, they introduced like Lieutenant Falcon, voiced by Don Johnson, and Big Lob. There was a whole and Jinx.
We get it. Yeah. You know everything about the show. Like nobody's challenging you
for
the throne.
Listen, because there's listeners out there going, "How do you not remember the name Golobulus, which is the name of Burgess Meredith?" And I'm like, "Well, of course." So Golobulus and.
Well, I would like to offer my heartfelt apology to those listeners. I do now remember. I totally forgot about this until we started talking about it. That as a boy growing up, the two crushes I had I don't mean crushes. I mean like the two women I wish I could be alone with as a kid, not having any idea how to make those moves. Was the woman from that movie on the Cobra side, can't remember, and Chun-Li from Street Fighter.
Wow.
2. And
you've got a type.
Yeah, I guess. Do
animated.
They look similar? Yeah, animated. Well, I'm not saying those were the only ones on the list, but they were the two basically cartoon characters.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. I was never into
which
the
G.I. Joe
in
character are you the most attracted to?
In live cosplay, Baroness. That look is amazing.
No, I'm asking which cartoon character when you were a kid did you spend a few late nights thinking about?
I think I would have to say Lady J. She had that husky voice, and at the time, who was hotter than Demi Moore?
Yeah,
and and at the time, Romancing the Stone.
Oh, Kim.
No. She's the voice of voice of Jessica Rabbit. Like Lady J had that vocal thing going on.
Yeah,
so I think probably Lady J.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. Yeah. I guess I went more to the dark side. Then.
I think so. Cool. Well, I'm really excited. Thanks for listening, guys. If you're out there on the internet and you want to find me, go to @JoeOnJoePod. That's at Facebook, and that's on Twitter, and that's on Instagram. And guess what? I just threw us up on YouTube.
Nice.
You can find us on YouTube now. I don't know if a lot of people listen to podcasts on YouTube because the video doesn't change, but you can see the cool file cards that I make for every episode. They come out really well in the video. They don't show up as well online.
There you go.
So check me out, and if you want to be a guest on the show, send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com, and I would love to have you on. We're going to have a guest in the next couple of weeks. He hit me up, and we're going to have a fan on the show. So,
nice.
Nick Glassman,
yes.
Are you ready for the rotten egg?
I think so. I was telling Joe earlier that having missed the Cobra Telethon by one, that was but I think I'm ready.
All right, well, let's get into it, and here we go.
Yo, Joe!
So we always start with the USS Flag. Let's talk about toys that you had. Do you remember any of the figures that you had, Nick?
I can't remember. I'm sorry to interrupt with that thought, but Yo Joe, I'm surprised that never became a tagline.
You've never. That's the tagline.
Is Yo-Jo? So
Yojo's
Yo-Jo?
Yeah, Yojo's the tagline.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yojo's totally the tagline.
And that was the guy I was talking about.
Yojo is what everyone online says to me.
Oh, really?
Yojo? Yeah.
All right. Well,
I've done this podcast. Yeah.
I do like opening this up, making sure everybody understands. You don't need to know anything about the show to be on the podcast. Oh, there she is.
100% that. 100% that. Rebecca, Nick, you know my wife really well. My wife's done this podcast. How much about G.I. Joe do you think she knows?
I realize that guy is made of metal, but he caught a rocket launcher in the chest.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, there's a lot of wonky explosion physics here.
And also,
so we've got The Rotten Egg. It's written by Steve Mitchell and Barbara Petty. We can open up on some Conquest X-30s attacking some Cobra base. If it's supposed to be a secret base, why is your landing pad adorned with a giant Cobra sigil?
You know, it was a different time back then. Like everybody didn't record everything with their phones and post it. You might have gotten away with that, and if you're in a smaller local market, I guess.
He gets the job done.
We've got this is cool. This is a team of newer guys: Dial Tone, Leatherneck, Low Light, Roadblock is with them. What they've done in this season for the most part is they'll add a lot of the new Joes, which those three are new, and then they always mix in one of the older guys. Roadblock in this case, so it like keeps you. If you're a fan of the first season, it kind of walks you into the new dudes and what they're all about.
Yeah. Oh, this is like 5 frames per second.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Old days.
Wetsuit, a lot of seals. They just blew up a Cobra hydrofoil. So do you have? Oh, that's cool. That's an APC. That was one of my favorite toys. It's one of the most simple toys. I loved it. So I love seeing it being used like this. Did you? So what kind of toys did you have? Was it figures mostly, or?
Oh, I think I had all the figures. I mean, they were. I can't remember the chronology between Star Wars earlier, certainly. But then the only other figurines I remember anybody having other than G.I. Joe were all the He-Man ones, which were just bigger. But I mean, I must have had 30 or 40 of them.
So Leatherneck gets invited. This is a strange plot point. He gets invited to a military academy graduation at a CEG military academy where he's never even heard of this military academy. And with a sight unseen, he agrees to go to it.
Maybe I must have missed it, but where did the topic of that letter come from? Did
Lifeline rolled up and said you got a letter, like mail call.
So that's how they deliver mail, like right after you
destroy
a bunch of Cobras. Hey,
in the middle of the battle.
Thanks for scuttling that ship. Well, I no problem. I was delivering you a piece of mail.
I will say this though. In like Vietnam, isn't that how they did it? Wouldn't they like dudes would be out in the line and they would send couriers out and like am I thinking of that property? You're a big MASH guy. MASH is your favorite movie, right?
MASH is my favorite all-time movie.
You watch it every year on your birthday or once a year?
I easily watch it once a year. I mean, I fashioned my entire personality after Donald Sutherland's character in that movie. Or it's a sort of like a nexus between that and Bill Murray and Ghostbusters. That's kind of what I was going for.
I fashioned mine on Donald Sutherland in Animal House, pantsless.
That is interesting. Did you see?
Well, Leatherneck shows up and he meets the head of the CEG Academy, Buck McCann. What a great name, Buck McCann.
We're talking, so I'm getting a little distracted, but I'm trying to figure out what scenario led to Leatherneck showing up, meeting the guy in charge of the academy, and then just punching him out.
Well, he just explained it. Like you're getting a little background. He calls him an escaped criminal, and now we realize what the CEG stands for. Boom.
Wow.
It's a Cobra training facility.
Temper,
Leatherneck walked right into it, Nick.
Tired.
But
take him to his room.
Again, getting back to the telethon thing, if it's just if you send a letter, better than average chance it's going to work.
Yeah.
Well, do we ever see underneath this guy's ski mask?
Not on purpose. There were a few in his early appearances where they would draw him and the face wouldn't be drawn, but I have a feeling it was always an animation mistake. And because then like the next scene it would be back on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was always the gag that you never really saw him. He wasn't horribly disfigured like Snake Eyes or anything. He was so into being beachhead that So now we get a rare flash. This is a rare flashback on G.I. Joe. We often don't get into this. So we're learning the personal story of Leatherneck and why he hates McCann. Leatherneck was his drill instructor back in the early Marine days.
And Leatherneck still is dressed in the same outfit.
Same outfit, never changed.
Probably the same 2 grenades.
Carries live grenades on him at all times, not even in the war zone. Always having live grenades. And he's riding Butch McCann. He's because he sees something inside of him that is just not very good.
Marines I've ever seen. Excellent officer material.
McCann's got the potential, sir.
Here we go.
Just hope he can live up to the responsibilities. Come on.
Leatherneck kind of has the Sergeant Slaughter speech impediment lisp, like he speaks a little guttural. I've come to the conclusion. I think that if not for Leatherneck, if not for Sergeant Slaughter's probably high fee to be on these shows, this would have been a Sergeant Slaughter episode. You know what I mean? Because he shows up. He shows up sparingly in this because he was probably very expensive.
Yeah. And were there any other real life crossover people into G.I. Joe?
Well, they made a figure of William the Refrigerator Perry.
Come on.
No, it's in the other room. I'll show it to you.
I just feel like as a Bears fan, you're just making that up.
No, I'm not making that up. And later on, they made in more recent years, they made Roddy Piper.
I don't remember giving you permission to speak.
They were supposed to have
Drew Brees.
No, he'd be too. That's too powerful.
What are you going to do with that?
Overpowered.
It's like having the Sentinel on the.
Yeah. It's like that's like making everyone Snake Eyes.
Chuck you into the brink.
they were supposed to have Rocky Balboa. He was supposed to be a member of G.I. Joe.
He's got to cost more than Sergeant Slaughter.
Well, he did,
Yeah.
and it fell through. But he's in the G.I. Joe Order of Battle comic book that Marvel produced, because Marvel worked
as
produced this.
Rambo, I hope, or you just as Sylvester Stallone?
No, as Rocky. Like he was the G.I. Joe boxing instructor, and so he shows up in the book that tells you all the dossiers of all the Joe guys. It's in there, and then later on, in one of the things they print, that Rocky was printed in error. He's not actually a member of the G.I. Joe team, because that got out before Rocky's people approved it, or something fell through. So he never, and it was supposed, and they even had a Cobra nemesis for him called Big Boa, the Cobra boxing instructor.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just point out that they've captured him, they've put him in solitary confinement or whatever, but they didn't even take the knife off of his chest, let alone any other weapons that he might have had in that backpack.
Well, we're going into commercial contemplating the weaponry on Leatherneck. Today's Filecard Feature is on the Cobra Night Raven pilot, codenamed Strato-Viper. The best secret agents in the world work for private corporations as industrial spies simply because big business pays better than any government. Cobra can attract some of the best pilots from around the globe to join their air wing of the Cobra legions known as the Air Vipers by doubling and tripling their salaries. Air Vipers are formidable opponents, and the Strato-Vipers are the cream of the cream. Quote, to qualify as a Strato-Viper, a candidate must first be an Air Viper with 1,500 hours logged in flight time. He must have a fixed wing rating up to 4 engines, combat experience, and impeccable security clearance, and be willing to undergo the surgical procedure necessary to make him more resistant to hypoxia, hyperventilation, and other decompression sicknesses that can affect a pilot above Armstrong's line, which is 63,000 feet. The Strato-Viper came with the Night Raven, which was the Cobra Stealth plane, also was used extensively in Season 2. It's the great big black plane that had a smaller, kind of a shuttle-looking plane that rode on top of it. Strato-Vipers were sweet with a really cool color scheme, different from most people. It's actually similar to, I think, a little scrap irony color scheme. They wear blue and gray and red. Faces are completely covered up. I love that they have the surgical procedures to make so they can withstand the speeds that they're going. In the show, they use the Night Ravens as kind of combat-based aircraft, and I don't think that was the original plan for them. I think the concept of the Stealth Raven is that they would sneak in, bomb a bunch of people, maybe get in a little bit of airplay, and then sneak out, but they tend to use them like they use Rattlers in the first season. It doesn't matter. They look amazing. We talked about this in a couple episodes back. It's my second favorite airplane behind, of course, the Sky Striker. The Night Raven is absolutely a gorgeous piece of machinery. Strato-Viper, all you anonymous, surgically enhanced, hypoxia, hyperventilation, and other decompression sickness resistant pilots, we salute you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Well, Nick, you know the answer to that. You've worked in animation.
Ready for some
it would cost you a lot of money to change the character model.
But this isn't a model. This isn't a 3D model. This is 2D art. Like it would not. Like
I'm giving you a full
he gets to keep his grenades.
He gets to keep his grenades. Maybe they're ceremonial.
And they just uncuffed him.
Well, while we were chatting, for those of you not watching, what we learned was
he's got a walkie-talkie, I think, on his side. He seems to have way more options.
Leatherneck caught Buck McCann stealing armament and stealing weapons from the Marines, and he got him kicked out of the Marines and thrown into prison. That's why they hate each other.
This is interesting. So now they've sent him into the woods again with grenades. He's got a knife.
Yeah.
He still has that backpack.
He's more well armored than any of the soldiers chasing him.
Another interesting thing about him is that at all times he seems to have a bedroll.
Yeah, well, he's ready. Come on, you got to be ready to take a nap. Like, you're a man who loves a good snooze. You know this.
Some respect. You seem to forget.
He's now also playing a little John Rambo here from First Blood, where he's hiding in the forest.
Bring a lot of naughty bags.
I didn't draw First Blood.
No, Beachhead sure didn't.
Nothing is over.
I have a great Rambo story. Can we go to another plot line?
Yeah, sure.
So when I was a kid, I kind of grew up partially in Hong Kong. My father moved out there. And I have all these great memories of just being an American in the 80s in Hong Kong. But one of them was we went to go see Rambo. Hong Kong's a super crowded place. And we walked into the movie theater and like everyone's kind of bumping into us and everything. It's just kind of how Hong Kong works. We sat down, we watched Rambo in the 80s whenever it came out. And then when the movie ended, we stood up and everybody just cleared out of the way to let us walk through. I don't know if they assumed, we were obviously the only Americans there, but like I don't know if they assumed we had guns or we just like killing lots of people. Cleared out of the way. Nobody wanted to deal with us. That was back in the days.
Out of
where-
respect or out of like fear?
I don't know. I mean, we didn't ask them, but one way or the other, they wanted nothing to do with us.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. It's funny. I knew a guy who grew up in
These fight moves make no sense.
India,
Uh-huh.
and he learned how to speak English from Rambo.
You missed.
Sorry, wait.
He
The show caught me.
He learned how to speak English from watching Rambo back home in
So he
India.
can't speak too much then.
Oh no, he's
Yeah.
very bright, very bright. He's well spoken, but he said when he first learned it when he was a kid, it was from watching First Blood.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So the most dangerous game is turning the tables on the Cobra troops that are chasing him. But we've got a lot of the same tropes that we get in movies like First Blood, like Predator, when Schwarzenegger was hunting the Predator. You know, like there's a river. There's always a river,
Right.
because it gives you an easy way to move the location. If everyone stays on their feet the whole time, the whole movie's going to take place in like 5 square blocks, right?
Yeah.
You throw someone in a river, you get downriver and get away, or it just moves the location. So here we are. The Cobra lady fell into the river, and Leatherneck's not going to let her die.
No.
Rucksack and all.
Yeah, again, you'd think you'd try and free some weight. Wow, got
No.
lucky that there's this dry stationary log here.
Listen, that's how much of a man a Marine is. That's what Leatherneck would tell you, Nick. So, Nick, for last...
Is Leatherneck not a negative thing? Do people like being called Leathernecks?
I think Marines do. I think it's like a point of pride.
Which ones are Jarheads? Are they
Jarheads are...
Also
I
Marines?
think Jarheads are also Marines, too. But that's, I think, more of a derogatory.
Okay.
Because, like, you're dumb as a jar. But what's neat is...
Stop me from...
Leatherneck and Wetsuit, who's the Navy guy, they have a really great rivalry on the show. And it comes into play a little bit here because...
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll see it. Basically, Wetsuit's like, I can't find my buddy who I hate, but everyone's like, well, you always razz
That's
him.
right. I remember them always.
Yeah. Yep, they're always
Oh,
getting each other's business.
they got him out of his outfit.
Finally.
His first thought's got to be, where is my bedroll?
Yeah, but they kept his mustache.
He was wearing one of those backless gowns.
That's a good look. And we've got Serpentor arriving
But can they
to
fight?
inspect his troops.
Just say, Your Highness.
Spencer's voice
The
sounds a little
ones
weird
who
in this
couldn't
episode,
aren't
frankly.
here
So I
today.
remember Serpentor. I remember having some issues between Goblin from the Spider-Man universe
Doing
and
Goblin?
Serpentor, right?
Yeah,
Where
they're similar.
I just find it fascinating that like he just refuses to walk anywhere. Like it's got to be a pain getting that hovercraft everywhere.
Lost your sense of humor.
I mean, he came off of his plane on that hovercraft.
Well, it does hover, so you could just fly it on and off, We're going back into a little flashback, and we're going to find this is what we're going to see now is McCann's rendition of things, and now he's basically telling Leatherneck what's going to happen to his adored Paris Island. Is Cobra's
boy.
going to take it over?
oh boy!
So now it's
Island was
personal.
overrun
Now
by
it's
enemy
personal.
troops.
But
and
this is
then
their game plan. Their game
destroyed
plan is to take
by
over.
massive
Yeah,
explosions.
take it over and then blow it up.
Well, that
I don't know
doesn't
why
make
you
any
would,
sense.
I don't know why you wouldn't just blow it up. Why bother taking it over?
Or if you're going to take it over, I assume it's because you want it. So why then blow it up?
Right, exactly. Do one or the other.
Seems like there's some different
Yeah,
options
yeah,
there.
But it's personal revenge. It's like, oh boy, this whole intricate plot was set up just to get his revenge on Leatherneck, and a little self-defeating.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go in a commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna find out what kind of soldier you are.
These messages.
It's the most lethal G.I. Joe team yet. Have come Street Fighter 2! No way! Wait! It's Guile, Ryu, Zangief, Blanca, and Dalcine! But the dolls! Oh! Some with real ninja moves! Hey!
But Cobra's got Street Fighters too!
Vega, Sagat, Balrog!
And me, El Bison!
They look unbeatable! You know them, you love them. So correcto! Have come Street Fighter 2 figures each sold separately. Oh, I like them.
Now, back to G.I. Joe.
So Nick,
Yeah.
you could be a Joe or you can be a Cobra. What is your soldierly duty, and what would your name be?
So, a plot line I've always been fascinated with in the whole, superhero, superhuman world is like just the idea, like there are two things. This is going to sound boring, but I've always thought they were funny. And one of them is like just the superhero cleanup crew. Like who are the people that show up to clean all this stuff up?
Yeah,
but they're
like damage control.
Yeah, there are things about that, right? We've
Yeah.
looked into that. But what I'd be really interested, and maybe this is kind of like what I do for a living, but like the behind-the-scenes operating officer trying to make the numbers work on flying around in incredibly expensive stuff, blowing it up all the time, having all these guns that don't seem capable of killing anybody, and having this constant threat that always lets you know where they are, that no one ever seems to be able to end. Like how do you make the numbers balance? So
are you Joe or Cobra?
I think I would like to be like a G.I. Joe behind-the-scenes operating officer where, like, I like the idea that, like, you know how there's this common theme of like these superhero, like wait, give me. I know I can tell you got a name. I can tell you got a name. But like,
podcast listeners, just my brain almost exploded. I got it.
But so we've seen before big, butchy, capable men and women coming back from something impressive, and there's some jerk with a clipboard arguing with them, right?
Right.
I would want to be that guy, but G.I. Joe-ified. So I've got 1 to 2% body fat. You know what I mean? I
sure.
look like I have.
Because you came up through the military ranks.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're a
this
soldier.
Isn't an accident that I'm here.
But you're a soldier. You just also happen to have.
I'll eventually have a spin-off episode where
that was almost a big crotch shot.
Yeah. I mean, this is weird. I mean, he's running around.
Leatherneck. He's making his escape.
He's still in his hospital gown
and he jumps onto a passing semi-truck.
Constantly going up and coming in and out of trees, like his primary move here.
He's like, basically, this episode shows us Leatherneck is a soldier. Like, he's a capable dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's Rambo.
Look at the physique on this truck driving redneck. You some kind of weirdo, boy.
He's wearing a cat hat. I mean, that's a logo. That's a branded logo. And they
kind of looks like James Caan.
I doubt they got like permission for it. You know what I mean?
Nut house.
Like they just drew it in the animation.
All I want to do is get to Paris Island.
And he's menacing him without watching where he's driving.
Not to mention the fact that
I've
this
got your name,
giant
by the way.
naked man. I've
got your name.
Okay.
Your name is the CE Joe.
I love it.
You're CE Joe.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
CE Joe.
CE Joe. Yeah. You're the behind the scenes money man / like numbers man.
Yep. And I'm not a dictator. I'm a leader. I'm trying every time people come back, I'm trying to show them charts to get them to understand that like taxpayer dollars are going to come up as an issue if we keep doing this. Like all we're doing
in the comic books, readers may recognize this term. You would be absolutely either on the jugglers or you would be one of the liaisons to the jugglers. The jugglers are the group of super high end top brass that kind of give Duke and give Hawk the orders for the team.
Okay.
So they meet in secret and they're like there's branches from all the portions of the government and they basically say you're doing too much of this, you're doing too much of that, and they kind of give the Joes the marching orders at a really really high level.
Yeah,
so you would be somehow
but to
tied
be
in
clear,
with the
I'm not saying I want to be in charge. I just want to try and make the G.I. Joe squad profitable.
Yeah.
I want to return us into the black.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. When they blow up a base instead of capturing it and using the resources, you're upset about that. Because we could have repurposed some of that weaponry for our own purposes.
Yeah,
bring some of that ammo, and now we don't have to spend money on it to get our own.
Yeah, I mean, what was that famous line? I can't remember who said it, and I don't even have the line right, but something to the effect of, "It's a lot easier to blow up a train station than to make a train station go." Would be my energy here.
Yeah, awesome. You're CE Joe.
CE Joe. I'll take it.
I love it.
I really want to talk a little bit more about the outfit though, because he should certainly be in like business suit, suspenders, minus the jacket and the tie, and somehow, what do you call the thing that you harness the gun in? Is that just
the holster?
The holster.
Holster.
But I want to have like a calculator, and if you know what I mean, I'm ready to business model at a moment's notice.
I know who your arch enemies are.
Wow.
Tomax and Zaymot.
That's right.
The twins who run Extensive Enterprises.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like an ex-Extensive Enterprises, and when you found out that they were evil, you didn't know they were evil.
Yep.
But when you found out, you were like, I gotta fight Al Qaeda. Like I gotta fight Cobra. I'm gonna enlist, and I'm gonna use my information to help the G.I. Joe team.
And I also kind of like the idea. Like one thing that you learn when you build.
Leatherneck finally got pants.
Well. I mean, there are lots of things I wanted to comment on. At one point, he jumps out of a moving truck onto a Harley, beats up the guy who's fighting him back, and then knocks him
the
off.
Motorcycle falling over.
It didn't wobble.
No.
Like it was just locked in.
It was balanced.
What's with the band? This is a military ceremony. Showtime!
All right, so Cobra's making their assault on the graduation ceremony, and the band, which shouldn't even be there, they're all disguised Cobra guys. So now we've got to fight.
They got the commandant!
Smart move, Joes. Any heroics and boom, no more Paris Island.
So
it's a stalemate.
It is. There's nothing you can do except maybe a unknown third party getting involved
with red pants and a hospital gown for a shirt. And Leatherneck is now fist fighting.
I knew that.
McCann.
Yep.
And here come those are the
I remember. Yeah.
So it's just a melee. It's actually similar to the end of Animal House. A marching band.
So close.
People
the
punching
band
each
is
other.
Just cleaning house. Wow, that's another guy that's got a bunch of live grenades on him. Who's the blondie?
That is.
By the way, I also love that a fight broke out, but
Ripper.
nobody wanted to focus on the guy who had the thing that can blow the whole place up.
No, of course not. Of course not. He's trying to make a getaway in a conquest.
This is going to turn.
journey.
Oh, I thought they were going to have a chase.
Oh no, like some kind of Fast and the Furious runway chase. Oh, that's
you know
a
what
nice
I
shot.
always did admire about G.I. Joe? That nobody ever gets hit with any of the weapons, which is a little frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But also nobody ever respects the concept of the weapons. Like right there, we had 3 people firing automatic rifles into 3 Joes who were 10 feet away running at them, and they just knew they weren't going to get hit.
Yeah, they feel safe. And now we go to the end of Lethal
Yep.
Weapon. Mel Gibson on the front lawn fighting the albino. What's his face?
I just realized the marching band kept their hats on.
Of course.
I mean, they're big hats.
And Buck is getting whipped by Leatherneck. The Joes have overpowered everyone else, and it's all up to Leatherneck to beat Buck McCann.
You made one mistake, Bucko. I may be older, but I'm better.
Yes.
Wow.
That's so good. And this girl will not give it up.
Nope.
She will not give it up. She is a zealot. Slapping on him.
Cobra is strong.
She's
Cobra will beat
yeah, she's nuts. She's like Squeaky Frome
Yeah.
brainwashed nuts.
And in what world? I mean, we're 78 episodes in. You got to know at this point, Cobra's not strong. Like Cobra.
Well, Cobra just got the Serpentor, and so he gives them a lot of power. So they
that's
actually
right.
this season they have been doing better. They've had a few like not shattering losses. The guy from earlier that was trying to save Leatherneck a little bit, he just ripped off his Cobra patch. So I think he's going to turn a corner and lead a better life. Is what I think after he gets out of the brig, of course.
We can only hope.
That is the rotten egg. What did you think? When was the last time you watched an episode of G.I. Joe?
Wow. I mean, my best guess would be about a decade and a half ago.
Yeah.
I rewatched a piece of that movie that was foundational for me, and I said, "Whoops." I mean, I remember watching it, thinking similar to what I said as soon as this got started. I was like, "Wow, this is 5 frames per second." So it's, the quality level killed me.
Sure.
And then,
but I will say this though,
Yeah.
For the time, I think the quality of this stands up for cartoons of the time.
I do. Speaking of, one of the cartoons I loved when I was younger was Thundercats.
Yes.
And I went back and watched Thundercats, and that does not stand up. I mean, that is rough stuff.
My thing with Thundercats is what was any of their goals? I like Thundercats a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but when I think about it, I don't know what their goals were besides to stop Mum-Ra. But what was Mum-Ra's goal?
Well,
why were they on that planet? Why were they marooned? Like, what was any of that?
Yeah, clearly Panthro is developing technology that can get you off the planet. Right.
So was it like Gilligan's Island with cats?
Well, no, because they weren't trapped on the planet. Like, they chose to be on the planet. Like, I mean,
I don't know. See, I don't.
They definitely crash landed there.
Yeah.
My bigger problem with Mum-Ra was he seemed to, as big and as crazy and as cool as he was, he had one power, which was that little electric things could come. You know, he had the same as in Star Wars, right? He had the Emperor Palpatine's power. And the one thing he should have learned after every single episode is, for whatever reason, the eye of the sword can absorb them.
That's true.
So at some point, you should just pick up and throw a rock, right? You know your main power will accomplish nothing. And you just keep getting yourself into a situation where that same dude with the sword is there, and you're like, I'm going to shoot
like in
him.
G.I. Joe. Like, my lasers aren't working, so I'm just going to punch Buck McCann in the face.
Maybe, but like what you can say about Cobra, like the one thing I always admired about the show is, man, they kept trying new ideas.
They really did.
Like it was by no means I'm going to show up with guns and take things over. Like they were always convoluted.
Well, you know
strange.
so you know whatever's going on here. They got 5 other plans going on halfway around the world.
Yeah.
Destro's hatching something. Mindbenders working on something.
And as C.E. Joe, I would probably respect that. I would be like, there's a lot of R&D going on in this place.
If only they could turn that to the forces of good.
Or just profit. Like, why not?
Or
Could you imagine how much money Cobra could have made if they said, you know?
Well, I mean, the Cobra-thon, they had to raise $5 billion in 1985. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, the other night I was talking with somebody, and we were talking about the EU, right? The European Union, and Brexit. And I was saying, you know, if things proceed on this path, nobody will have noticed this, but Germany will basically take over Europe, right? Because they're funding all of these countries. You know, there's so many, and I think part of what anybody would find if they ever took over Europe is, oh no, now I've got to make Europe work. I don't want this at all, right? And I think Cobra the same way. If you took over the world, what skill do they have other than either taking over the world or blowing things up? They're going to have a lot of trouble.
Yeah, totally.
I just don't think somebody has come up with, you know, the full exit plan of Cobra.
Are you trying to say Cobra Commander's a little unhinged? Is that what you're saying? Is that the revelatory?
Well, the weird thing is, like, when I was watching it as a kid, I always wondered, like, I always thought to myself, Destro seems a little bit closer to being able to do something with this, right? Cobra.
Well, yeah, he's the brain.
Yeah,
he provides the weaponry and stuff. It's Cobra Commander's got the idealism,
right?
You know, he inspires the troops.
I mean, amazingly, because the troops have got to look at their overall record against G.I. Joe and know, it's probably unlikely that this one of 200 plans is going to work, and that's one I'm on.
Well, we know from watching the show closely, Cobra has health insurance. Cobra has, you get vacation days with Cobra. Like, they're a functional...
Isn't this all kind of from one episode that you're pulling this?
Multiple. There's a couple multiple.
Okay.
But, yeah, you piece it together in a couple. But, yeah, there was one where it was from the Vipers coming. They raid a Cobra vacation spot, and they're all on R&R. So Cobra's not a slave driver thing. They pay wages. They give you health insurance. They have a magazine called Cobra Monthly.
So that's a little frustrating for me that if you're paying wages with vacations, and that means you're probably filing W-2s, which means there are a lot of ways to shut down Cobra if you're only wanting to put in the effort. You know their contact information. The IRS should be able to get everybody's social security number and home location.
Well, everyone files under Fred. That's an inside joke for the comic books. Nick, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was a pleasure.
Man, CE Joe, I love it.
Yep.
I loved having you on.
I'm going to work on some concept designs.
Yeah, and so you know, when we do the movie, we're inviting everyone from the LA area to come over here and watch it all together and do a big movie recording gangbang. So you're invited.
I'm totally, I'm a little less excited now that you use the term gangbang, but I'm still in. But what's, wait a minute. So what episode number, what do we have to get to get to the movie? We got to be close, right?
We're very close. We're very close. By my count, there's 93 episodes, so we are 15 away. So
I'm not kidding when I say that it was a foundational moment for me when Nemesis Enforcer was created. I thought he was the coolest guy. He had the best name. But I might need to walk out of the room and Sergeant Slaughter beats him up because it was just so unrealistic. But great. Thank you for having me.
I look forward to seeing it. Thank you so much, Nick. This was great. Everyone, I appreciate you listening. And remember, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.